Hey guys, Caleb with Commando Bond here. Today I want to do something a little different than just talking about the firearms and the James Bond aspect of things. Well, I love all of that and that's never going anywhere. I wanted to discuss what we can be reading and enjoying in this time where we're Bond fans, but there's not a lot of Bond stuff going on. This is a question I feel like at the tip of everyone's tongues. You know, there's fun movies. I mean, I just got done seeing Argyle, the new I think Marv was the production agency that did that film. Same guys as the Kingsman and everything else, and it's enjoyable and it kind of fills that bucket, but it's not the same thing as James Bond. It's not as serious. It's lighthearted, fun, and makes you laugh, but what scratches the itch of like a quality thriller set in a world that is incredibly rich in detail, deep in character development, and demands that you come back for more? That is a much harder question than a movie that you can sit through, enjoy, go back every once in a while, but isn't the same thing as the franchise that we've all grown to love. And so today, if you haven't seen my content on Instagram or seen the Amazon Prime series or read one of the 6 books, I wanted to introduce you to Jack Carr, and more specifically, his amazing Terminalist saga. This happens to be one of my favorite books, Savage Son. It's based on a short story that I grew up reading in middle school and such, and it's just an incredible read. Well, based on is a poor way to describe that. It's celebrating the core of that story, and I think that's a better way to put it, because what Carr does is he celebrates everyone who's come before him in an incredible way, where so many authors take advantage of or attempt to emulate people who have come before. What Carr does is celebrates the quintessential thriller through his own lens while adding in elements that are just so essential to the things that we love. For example, in the James Bond novels, Ian Fleming pioneered the utilization of in-depth esoteric detail to bring richness to a world where oftentimes something would be described as a gun, a bar of soap. Rather, James Bond wore a 2-piece navy blue suit, a Sea Island cotton shirt, and a black silk knit tie with a chamois leather holster and a skeleton gripped Beretta. Actually, with a skeleton gripped Beretta, there you go. And he shaved with a particular type of soap. He drank martinis that were not just, made with vodka. No, in fact, they were made with Gordon's gin. And they were specified with Quina Lillet, and all these other little details that developed a world that really hadn't been brought to the page before. Now, many people since then have done similar things, and they've brought items onto the page or onto the screen. I mean, Ian Fleming organically was doing product placement, and now you can't watch a movie without it feeling like a giant billboard, right? And I think that's what I'm trying to get to here when it comes to Jack Carr's novels, where so many take the time to at least add in product. It's in an inauthentic way. And when it's done inauthentically, and when it doesn't feel natural, and it doesn't drive the story, it's just ad-libbed in, or it's a buddy's company, or whatever the case may be, it's like listening to music and hearing the wrong note. It jars you out of the story. It feels unnatural. It feels self-serving to a degree, and it doesn't work. And I'm not here to bash on other authors. What I'm trying to convey is what makes Carr's books different. So what's different about these is each piece sets a scene, tells a story, and it helps us gain a better understanding of the world. And it's also incredibly authentic. Jack Carr, prior to becoming a New York Times bestselling author, was a Navy SEAL for a very long time. And in his time, he also became a gear snob and fanatic and enjoyed attending industry shows like SHOT Show and discovering the newest and the latest and greatest in equipment, and collects and always stays on the bleeding edge of what is new. And so naturally his character, who by definition is going to emulate and be part of him to some degree, is going to have that as an innate quality of his own. So we know the labels of clothing that he's wearing. We know the backpacks that he's using. We know the guns that he's using, because that's what Jack cares about. He cares about those items, and he chooses those items. He curates those items very carefully for himself. And so it's very intentional when they find their way onto the page. And that's really, really cool. And again, it doesn't just serve an unnecessary purpose. In reality, it drives us into his world so much deeper. James Reese, his main character, has a very rich and important world. You know, The Terminalist, the first novel, uses the 226 pistol as not just a gun, it's actually pretty core to the plot, and it creates a chain reaction of events that leads now to 6 novels and now on to the 007th. It's really, really exciting. And so when we ask ourselves as Bond fans, what can we be celebrating, and what can we be enjoying, and what should we take the time to take a plunge into while we have no idea what Eon is doing, while the continuation novels that are being written are, On His Majesty's Secret Service is unnecessary pandering to an audience that has nothing to do with the world of Bond and is rather derivative, whether you agree with the politics of it or not. It's bland and it doesn't satisfy. And so if you're looking for something that is cutting edge, and in the vein of Fleming, not just because of the innate definition and description of what's going on in the world, but in the way that in 30 years, I can pass this book to anybody, my son, God willing, or a family member, or whoever the case may be, and I can give them a time capsule of what it was like to live in these years. Because these are up-to-the-minute political thrillers. And just like Fleming, when I open Moonraker, I have a sense of what was happening in London during the time of writing. I'm drawn into that world. I have an understanding of not just what the world looked like, what the politics were, what was the core issues of the time, how people thought. And primary source fiction like that, when it's done well, is fiction that lasts eternally. And that is what Jack Carr's writing is. It's eternal fiction. It's something that we're not just going to throw away as a dime store novel someday. And that's why I'm urging Bond fans to take this plunge, because we don't know what's coming next and no promises are being made. And so in the process, let's enjoy some other stuff that's in the same vein. And, Jack Carr's a massive Bond fan himself. So this is a series that has a lot of Bond references woven into it. The 7th book's going to have a lot of stuff in there, I'm sure. Jack literally went to Goldeneye, the birthplace of James Bond, and wrote some of the book there. He sat at the very desk Ian Fleming wrote each and every Bond novel at. Because at the end of the day, he's a fan like us. And he's writing his own fiction, and he's telling amazing stories. Chris Pratt is bringing it to life incredibly on Amazon Prime. There's now a prequel series. So if you want to talk about a place where there's rich content that continues to grow day in and day out, look no further than Jack Carr's universe of The Terminalist. At the end of the day, I've been humbled to know Jack and to be friends with him, and he's done some really amazing stuff. You might see my name rather, if you look close enough in the acknowledgments of the most recent novel, the 6th book, and that to me was an earth-shattering and humbling experience that I was unexpecting. And I want to make videos like this, not only just to share Jack's incredible work, but to thank him for continuing a legacy like this and being just a genuinely good human being in a not-so-great world sometimes. So, if you're struggling and you're trying to find something to get into, start a series that's written by a Bond fan, a friend of mine, and someone who's really just getting started. We're in the era that people got to be in when Ian Fleming was writing. And I think that's pretty cool. And the thing that I was trying to get to before, going off on that little tangent there, was Jack quoted an article that I wrote in his spin-up for Red Sky Morning, the 7th book, which I cannot wait for, coming out this May. And he blurbed me, which was, again, another incredibly humbling experience. And I meant when I said it, and I wasn't expecting to be blurbed, so I'm going to say it again because I am very proud of the quote. It's James Reese is the 21st century American answer to James Bond. And I think that continues to stand. I think that you'll agree with me when you start the series. So I've linked below the link to Amazon so you can start buying these books. Go to Jack's website. There's some really cool stuff there as well. he's built an incredible curation of products and stuff. I'm wearing a Triple Lot Design collaborative jacket that he did that has a literal pocket set up for EDC. He uses it with a combat flathead that actually comes in the books. I've been using it with my CRKT Sting dagger from Quantum of Solace that I'm very fond of, and it fits wonderfully into this pod as well. So very cool stuff there. But yeah, please, if you haven't already given these books a try or started the Amazon Prime series, give it a go. As a Bond fan, I don't think you'll be disappointed. This has been Caleb with Commando Bond. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.